So we do want to talk about what does excelling mean, and we have none other than soon-to-be emergent Dr. Ivette Ruiz with us here from Connecticut. She is the founder of Onward Horizons Leadership Development Associates. She's a principal trainer, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that training, where she oversees executive coaching and consulting services, leadership development, organizational development, how if your student is wanting to be a part of like a nonprofit organization, how can they be developing to pursue that diversity and inclusion. You know, as Latinos, when we walk into the room, we provide some insight on a different culture that our mainstream culture in the United States does not have access to ordinarily. And so God is opening up doors for Latino students, and we believe that God is calling us to be light in places. I also want to tell you about Ivette, that she has a Master's of Science in Organizational Management and Leadership, and she's about to get her PhD in Organizational Management and Leadership as well. So we want to dive in and tap into the wisdom that God has given you. Ivette, thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So we're talking about excelling in education, and I wanted to get your insight and ask you, when you think about excelling in your own educational journey, what made the difference for you?
What made the difference for me, I strongly believe, was the seed that the Lord planted in me when I was very little. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I was 6 years old when I first told my parents I wanted to become a doctor. I used to run around the house and pretend I was a doctor, trying to influence everyone, teach everyone, check their tummies, check their headaches. I didn't know what type of doctor I wanted to be, but I certainly wanted to be a doctor. And as I went through life, and I went through the peaks and valleys, and I went through certain situations, and I looked at my surroundings and my environments, I realized that my family has struggled a lot in their life. Life has not been easy. There's been many hardships. And I wanted to see if I could make a difference, if I can influence them in a different way. My mother having a sixth grade education, my father having a high school diploma. I began to do some search on my own. I love to do research. And started talking to folks at school, guidance counselors, and got involved, and wanted to know if I could do it. And at first, for a long time, I didn't think we could do it because nobody in my family did it. Finances were extremely tight. But I realized that I believe in a God that makes all things happen. And as long as I believe in a God that makes all things happen, well, He's going to help me with that seed that He planted, and He's going to be able to nourish that seed so that it can have a harvest. And today, I am going to be a doctor in a short few weeks, and I'm really, really excited about that. It's been a tremendous journey. But the thing that really pushed me the most when I wanted to quit the most was two things. My children. I wanted to give them a different story. And if it wasn't me that changed it, then who else could have been? So that's where it started. And then I became homeless. And seeing everyone around me in the conditions that they were in allowed me to see that God did not want me there, that God placed me there for a reason, to use me, to open up my eyes, to be able to have people mentor me that believed in me. And I believe that being homeless was the biggest blessing I could have ever had. Many people think that you're homeless because of drugs, because of poor choices in life. For us, I was married at the time. It was just a mere fact that my ex-husband lost his job. And that changed our life forever. But I always say God's plan is an amazing plan. And He knew all along what was going to happen. And while I was taking the easy way out and saying school is not for me, I'll never go that route, He placed me there. And placing me there allowed me to believe that this is not what I want for me. But most importantly, this is not what I want for my children. And how do I change it? And how I changed it was I took the leap of faith. I trusted the Lord. And even when things have been tough and I've been wanting to quit all along, I know there's a mighty power that still holds my hand and guides me along.
So powerful. Well, as you think about well, first, I just want to say that I think when people are watching you, it's a shock to them to know that you were homeless at a certain time in your life, and gives them hope to know that God walked you through every step. I just think that that's beautiful. Thank you for being transparent about that piece. And as you think about where you were at that time and where the Lord has you today, what were some of the steps that you took that were very intentional about pursuing excellence in your education?
The intentional steps starting from being homeless was primarily finding a stable home. That was the first step. How do I get my children from point A to point B? And how do I make sure that I don't end up here again? So the first step was trying to transform my mindset in a way that was positive, that just because I'm here doesn't mean I have to stay here. So
Say that again, please. I mean, that is powerful for people to know.
That just because I'm here doesn't mean I have to stay here.
Amen.
I make a choice. And if I believe in the Lord and I take that leap of faith, He's not going to let me down. He might take me another way than the way I had mapped out for myself. But I still have gotten where He promised me He will take me.
Well, and I think about what that means for a student who's struggling with a class, and they think, well, I'm a C student, or I'm an F student, but that God doesn't, He doesn't keep you, He doesn't, you don't have to stay there.
Correct.
That He can elevate our mindset to see that He doesn't call us to be F students, that He's given us more, and that we have some resources that help us to grow so that we can be the very best that we're called out to be.
Correct. And we need to be mindful that just because we are not good students at one season in our life, that might not transform and change to something else. I wasn't a perfect student when I was in elementary and middle school and high school. But when I got to college, I don't know what God did in my mind, but I graduated with honors each time, in the dean's list each time. That, if you submit yourself to the Lord, and if you submit to His plan and not yours, and you believe in yourself that He has a better place for you to go, it's all possible. Because a C student, a D student, even an F student can certainly have that A. Everybody's awesome, and for me, A stands for awesome. And as long as you try and you keep on moving forward, you will reach that step. If you give yourself concrete steps, in 6 months, I want to be here. Maybe in 12 months, I want to be here. Begin to identify what are your likes, what do you love to do? Do I love to work with people? Do I love to work with animals? Do I love children? Do I love elders? And so as you build in your step, you are creating a plan so that you can maximize your strengths and build on your opportunities.
Now, are these things that you're writing down, like you're sitting down, did you sit down with your children and say, this is where I want to be, this is what where we want to be at, or how does that happen?
Initially, I started doing it all in my head. But I quickly went to pen and paper because I tend to have a mind frame that everything has to be organized and everything has to be prioritized. But that list of steps does not have to be concrete. It can be something that is fluid, that you can move, it can move with you and your circumstance, right? Because had it been up to Yvette's plan, I would have been a doctor 10 years ago. But see, the Lord had a different plan. He had to walk me through a different journey so that I can be better and excel in education. I believe that when you work hard for something that you have to earn the way there, you appreciate it in a much different level than if it was just given to you.
That's right.
And I believe that having gone through those hardships allowed me to be stronger, to pursue my dream, and to complete what I once started. Even if I started it on my mind, I still started it. So now I need to complete it and finish it. So once I write it off, I will check off. Sometimes I will share the list with my family. Sometimes I wouldn't. But I still have that list 10 years, 15, 20 years later. I still go by my bucket list.
Wow.
That's exciting. Well, we know one of your bucket list items was to come here, right?
Yes.
To come to Texas, and God has opened the door for that
That's
to happen.
right.
It was so wonderful to get to meet you and to hear your heart. I know that you have a consulting, what's that? What's the reference? The
Onward Horizons.
right? And so you get to train church leaders and business business professionals. And so I wanted to ask you, what are some tips that come to mind in your trainings that you feel like every student needs to know this?
Every student needs to know, whether it's an adult student or a young child, including every pastor and every human being, that I could do it. That there's no limitations to anything that you want. That there is no quitting. That the only person that can quit is you. As long as you keep on moving forward, you can make any goal, any dream come to fruition.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's incredible.
I can do it. We need to remember and share that with our students and with our pastors and church leaders. And I think that it's such a ministry for pastors and church leaders in particular to be saying that to people that are walking through the church doors or in the community on a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis, to say, you can do this, and to start changing that mindset.
You know, one of the biggest highlights for me was a 65-year-old woman I had in my classroom. She was graduating with her bachelor's degree. She was so inspiring and so moving. She shared her life history with me, and she ended up getting her bachelor's at 65. It was the most amazing story I've ever heard, because she believed that she could do it, and there was no one or no situation that would tell her otherwise. She believed it, and she walked by that. And it's really important that we tell people, I believe in you. You can do it. And as long as you tell them that in a genuine way, and you believe it, because people know when you're being real and when you're not.
Yeah.
And so encourage people to say, you can do it, I believe in you, and we have the resources to support you. I believe that we all have that within our reach to be able to encourage and inspire someone.
That's so powerful. You know, we think about that term self-efficacy, and there's so much research that says when you believe in yourself, that there's something that happens, that the Lord reminds you. I think it's really about figuring out and being cognizant of the fact that God says that we are valuable. So when we believe that, and we really believe Him, that we can do what He's called us to do, things change. Certainly want you to know what's happening across the country, how you can take part and cast that vision for other students as well, to help them to believe in themselves.